This might just be the biggest controversy in the WNBA right now. Aja Wilson is facing massive backlash, and it's all because of what happened with Caitlin Clark. The internet is furious, and the story just keeps getting crazier. Now, if you're taken aback by that, if you're like, wait a minute, that didn't compute. What about all of the Aja Wilson Nike outrage last year that subjected not only Caitlin Clark, but her fans to all kinds of racial hate? Remember when people were up in arms about Caitlin Clark getting a Nike deal before Aja Wilson? Well, new information just dropped, and it turns out Wilson knew about her own signature shoe for 2 years. But instead of clearing the air, she let the outrage build, leading to a social media storm that sent a hate mob straight to Clark. This is a story you don't want to miss. I mean, my God, the mainstream media, woke WNBA fans, they lost their minds. They went nuts. All right? Man, they were berating fans, you name it, going after Caitlin. All the white and the blah, and Aja Wilson was oddly silent, but complicit. This situation has turned into one of the biggest controversies in women's basketball. And honestly, it's hard to believe how everything unfolded. It started with Caitlin Clark signing a major shoe deal with Nike, a moment that should have been nothing but a celebration for one of the most talented players we've seen in years. But somehow it turned into an all-out war on social media, fueled by outrage, division, and misinformation. Now, if you've been following the WNBA, you know that Caitlin Clark is a generational talent. She's been breaking records, shattering expectations, and drawing more eyes to women's basketball than almost anyone before her. The hype surrounding her isn't just media-driven, it's backed by real results. But with her rise came a wave of criticism, particularly about the opportunities she's been getting compared to some of the league's veteran players. And that's where Aja Wilson comes into the picture. Wilson, a 2-time MVP champion and one of the WNBA's biggest stars, has dominated the league for years. She's an elite player, no doubt about it. But when Clark's Nike deal was announced, a lot of people felt like Wilson was being disrespected. The argument was simple. How does a rookie get a signature shoe before a player like Aja Wilson, who has already proven herself at the highest level? That's when social media erupted. Lots of people talking about the situation with her Nike shoe. People are not happy. I guess there are people even who may rock with Aja Wilson who would say, "Yo, Aja." People weren't just questioning Nike's decision. They were accusing them of racial bias. The conversation quickly turned ugly, with some fans, commentators, and even other WNBA players openly saying that Clark was only getting these opportunities because she was white. It wasn't just about shoes anymore. It became a full-blown controversy about race, recognition, and fairness in women's basketball. And Aja Wilson, she said nothing. She sat back and watched the outrage build. Fans were tearing Clark apart, accusing her of benefiting from racial privilege, claiming she hadn't earned her success, and dragging her name through the mud. The hate directed at Clark was insane. And all the while, Wilson, the player at the center of this conversation, stayed completely silent. At first, that silence didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe she just didn't want to get involved. Maybe she didn't want to add fuel to the fire. But then the truth came out. Wilson had known for 2 years that she was getting her own signature shoe from Nike. Yes, you read that right. 2 years. She already had a deal in place. She already knew she was getting a shoe. She let the internet explode with rage over something that wasn't even true. She let the controversy grow to the point where Caitlin Clark was being harassed daily over something that wasn't even real. And she never stepped in to stop it. Think about that. Imagine watching the world go to war for you over an issue that doesn't actually exist and choosing to stay silent. Imagine watching a 22-year-old rookie take brutal, non-stop attacks from fans, media, and even other athletes over a narrative that you could have ended with a single tweet. And yet, Wilson let it happen. This isn't just about keeping a secret, it's about the fact that she allowed a false narrative to grow, knowing full well that it was hurting another player. She could have stopped it. She could have said, "Hey guys, don't worry, I have my own shoe deal coming." She could have shut down the racial firestorm before it got out of control. But instead, she played the victim. She let people believe she was being wronged. She let the drama build until it became something much bigger than basketball. And by the time the truth came out, the damage was already done. Caitlin Clark had already been painted as the villain. She had already been called every name in the book. She had already been forced to deal with months of unwarranted hate because people believed she had stolen something from Wilson. But she didn't. Clark didn't do anything wrong. She signed a deal that Nike offered her. She didn't take anything from anyone. She didn't ask for this drama. She just wanted to play basketball. Yet because Wilson chose to stay silent, Clark became the face of a controversy she had nothing to do with. And now Wilson is paying the price. Her reputation is taking a hit. The fans who once supported her are turning on her. Even people who defended her during the controversy are now questioning whether she manipulated the situation for her own benefit. Because let's be real, how does someone sit on this information for 2 years and say nothing while the internet is losing its mind? It wasn't just the fans either. Even other WNBA players were jumping in, defending Wilson, attacking Clark, and making this whole situation about something it was never supposed to be about. Yet, Wilson said nothing, and that silence speaks volumes. It tells us that she was willing to let the drama unfold. It tells us that she was fine with letting people believe she was being disrespected, even when she wasn't. It tells us that she was okay with Clark taking the fall, as long as it made her look like the underdog, and now she's feeling the nuclear backlash. People are calling her out. Fans are demanding answers. The same people who fought for her, who defended her, who called out Nike for not giving her a shoe, they're now realizing they were lied to, and they're furious. The WNBA already has a problem with division. Fans are split. Tensions are high, and every move is scrutinized. This situation just made things worse. Caitlin Clark didn't deserve any of this. She should have been celebrating her Nike deal, enjoying the moment, and focusing on her game. Instead, she had to deal with an entire internet mob attacking her, all because Aja Wilson refused to clear the air. And now the backlash is turning on Wilson. Her credibility has taken a hit. The respect she once had from all corners of the league, it's starting to slip. Because when you let people believe a lie for your own benefit, eventually the truth catches up to you. Wilson could have stopped this. She could have ended the debate before it even started. Instead, she let it spiral out of control. And now, she's the one dealing with the fallout. This isn't just about a shoe deal. It's about accountability. It's about integrity. It's about whether Wilson was willing to let someone else take the heat just so she could enjoy the spotlight of being the so-called victim. And if that's the case, then this backlash, it's well-deserved. Because when you knowingly let a false narrative take over, when you let someone else suffer for something they didn't do, when you stand by and watch as people tear each other apart over a lie, eventually the truth comes out. And when it does, you're the one who has to answer for it. And that's exactly what's happening to Aja Wilson right now. This controversy isn't over. The backlash is just beginning. Wilson might try to move past it, but the internet doesn't forget. Fans don't forget. And Caitlin Clark, she's still standing, still playing, and still proving every single day that she never needed anyone's approval in the first place. Wilson, on the other hand, she's got a lot of explaining to do. The situation with Aja Wilson has completely spiraled out of control. What started as a debate over a Nike shoe deal has now turned into a full-fledged controversy, exposing how narratives can be manipulated, how social media can escalate drama, and how silence can be just as damaging as words. But here's the thing, this is bigger than just a shoe deal now. Wilson's actions, or rather her inactions, have not only hurt Caitlin Clark, but they've also divided the WNBA fan base in ways we've never seen before. And the backlash she's facing now, it's only going to get worse. So let's break it down. What's next for Wilson? Can she recover from this, or has she done irreversible damage to her reputation? Because let's be real, the internet doesn't forget. For months people fought on Wilson's behalf, convinced that she had been overlooked, ignored, and disrespected by Nike. They took to social media, wrote essays about injustice, and called out Caitlin Clark for stealing opportunities that should have gone to Wilson. But now, those same people are turning on her. They're realizing they were lied to. They spent months defending someone who already had everything they were fighting for. And now they feel betrayed. That's the thing about loyalty. Once you lose it, it's almost impossible to get back. Wilson could have stopped all of this. She could have shut down the false narrative before it spread like wildfire. But she didn't. She let it grow, let it build, let it become something so much bigger than it ever needed to be. And now, she's facing the nuclear backlash. But what does that actually mean for her career? Let's talk about the short-term consequences first. Wilson's reputation has taken a massive hit. The trust she once had from her fans, it's been shattered. The WNBA is a league built on community, loyalty, and mutual respect. And when a player is exposed for manipulating public perception for their own benefit, it doesn't sit well with the fan base. We're already seeing it. The conversations on social media have shifted. Fans who once blindly defended her are now questioning everything. People who were outraged on her behalf are realizing they were played, and the backlash is growing by the day. You can already see it in the comments under her posts, the discussions happening across forums, and even in the mainstream sports media. Wilson has lost control of the narrative, and that's not a good place to be, because once people feel deceived, they start looking for reasons to pull away completely, and that's exactly what's happening now. But let's take this a step further. What about the long-term consequences? Can Wilson recover from this? Honestly, it's going to be incredibly difficult. The WNBA fan base is passionate. They support their favorite players with everything they've got, but they also hold people accountable. And right now, Wilson is being held accountable for letting a 22-year-old rookie take the fall for something that was never even true. How does she come back from that? Well, she has two choices. One, she could own up to it. She could make a statement, address the situation head on, and apologize for not speaking up sooner. She could acknowledge that she'd let things go too far and try to rebuild trust with her fans. But let's be honest, that's not likely to happen. Wilson has never been the type to backtrack. She's never been the type to admit fault. And based on how she's handled things so far, it doesn't seem like she's about to start now. So that leaves her with option 2. She ignores it. She pretends it never happened, moves forward with her career, and hopes that people forget about it over time. But here's the problem with that. The internet doesn't forget. And WNBA fans, they definitely don't forget. Wilson might think she can move past this without addressing it, but the reality is this controversy is going to follow her for years. Every time she posts, every time she plays, every time she's in the media, people will remember. They'll remember that she let Caitlin Clark be dragged through the mud. They'll remember that she could have ended the outrage, but chose not to. They'll remember that she let a lie fuel a hate mob against a player who had done nothing wrong. And that's not something you just bounce back from. But here's another angle to consider. How does this affect the WNBA as a whole? Because make no mistake, this controversy isn't just about Wilson and Clark, it's about the bigger picture. The WNBA has been trying to grow its audience, bring in new fans, and build a more inclusive, supportive community. But this situation, it's made everything worse. It's created division, it's fueled resentment. It's turned a moment that should have been about celebrating a rising star into an ugly, unnecessary controversy. And let's talk about Nike for a second. How do they handle this moving forward? Nike has already been getting heat for how they've handled Caitlin Clark's shoe deal. People are accusing them of deliberately downplaying her success to avoid backlash from the WNBA's core fan base. They barely promoted her deal. They didn't give her the same rollout they've given other athletes, and now they look even worse. Because now people know that Nike allowed the Clark versus Wilson debate to spiral out of control without stepping in. They could have cleared things up. They could have been transparent. They could have stopped this entire situation from escalating, but they didn't, and now they're in the middle of a PR disaster. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a WNBA problem anymore. It's a sports problem, a marketing problem, a media problem. And the biggest problem, it was all preventable. Aja Wilson had every opportunity to stop this before it got out of control. She had every chance to step in, set the record straight, and prevent the unnecessary backlash that Caitlin Clark faced. But she didn't, and now she's the one facing the backlash. The internet is holding her accountable. Fans are demanding answers. People who once supported her are now questioning whether she ever deserved that support in the first place. This situation isn't going away anytime soon. Wilson's reputation is on the line, Nike's credibility is on the line, and the WNBA. It's at a crossroads because if they don't handle this the right way, they risk turning off new fans who are already frustrated by the league's double standards and internal drama. This isn't just about one player. This is about the future of the WNBA. And right now, it's looking messier than ever. So what happens next? Does Wilson try to fix this? Does she ignore it and hope it blows over? Or does this controversy change the way fans look at her forever? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over. And Aja Wilson, she's going to have to face the consequences sooner or later.